David Thompson from Rural Agri Innovation Network in Algoma. And yes, thank you for that, David. We recognize and appreciate your insight. The Zoom link has been sent out. We also have a hello from Amy from McQuenston Urban Farm in Hamilton. Welcome, Amy. Let's say welcome to Sally. We say welcome to Carla. Carla is from Open Food Network Canada. Welcome, Carla. And to those of us who are just joining, we're just giving folks a chance to officially join us, as there was just a little bit of a technical difficulty with Eventbrite, but we're so glad that you can make it. If you would like to introduce yourself in the chat box, and as Sally did, if you would like to share the traditional territories that you're situated on, please feel free to do that.
So I'll start. It's my pleasure to introduce Jillisa Brown from SETSI. She assists leaders across the globe in countries like Ghana, Germany, Jamaica, and Canada with exuding confidence in the direction of their purpose. 2019, she went to Australia as a mentor to 200 college students, and she facilitates now great work in the social service sector and leadership development ecosystem across Canada. She lives in Toronto with her son, and she's currently the Director of Community Engagement at SETSI Community Coalition. She's also the co-founder and CEO of House of Nine Sorority, the systems collaborator for the Solidarity Working Group, which I get to participate in, and a leader in her community. And I will say that she is one of the inspirations in my life right now for the work that she does and the partnerships that she is generating. So I'm very happy that she could find time to join us and do the facilitation today. So over to you, Jillisa.
Thank you so much, Sally. Got me blushing. And again, it's also my pleasure to introduce Sally Miller. She is the project manager for the Fair Finance Fund and has worked in sustainable food and agriculture and co-ops for over 25 years, including the Food and Farm Co-ops, Ontario Natural Food Co-op, Organic Meadow, Fourth Pig Worker Co-op, West End Food Co-op in Canada, and Linger Lakes Organic Growers Co-op in the US. She sits on various boards and also has publications including Edible Action, Food Activism and Alternative Economics, and Belongings, as well as the Fight for Land and Food. And she's also has numerous research reports. And Sally is truly like a true ally within our community. And it's been a real pleasure to be able to work and create action alongside her. So thank you, Sally. Next, we would love to just have a quick icebreaker to get us warmed up today. So we are going to start with holding our hand up, and we're going to put a finger down every time the statement agrees with us. So we're going to start with our hands up, and it's just 5 simple questions. So I would love if you could put a finger down. If you're happy to be here today, put a finger down. Okay, put a finger down if you believe that supporting local food and farming is important. Okay, put a finger down if you've ever visited a farm or a farmer's market. Okay, put a finger down if you've ever experienced barriers in work due to a lack of diversity and equity. You can put a finger down. And last, put a finger down if you're ready to learn and share some solutions to these barriers. Okay, and so this is a symbol of power, it's a symbol of unity, and something we've been doing a lot through the pandemic to stay connected, which is just some quick daps to each other. So welcome. Every session that we begin within our community, we always start with a land acknowledgement, which we've had an opportunity to do in the chat box. If you have not had that opportunity yet, we would love to know what traditional territories you are joining us from. As for myself, I live on the lands of Métis peoples in the Mississaugas of the Credits, Anishinaabe, and Haudenosaunee. Another thing that we also like to do to begin our sessions is to also acknowledge our ancestors. So today we want to begin this capacity building session by acknowledging the original stewards of various lands we are on. We also acknowledge our ancestors, those who were kidnapped and subsequently enslaved. We acknowledge those who toiled without compassion or compensation, those killed by police brutality and other forms of anti-Blackness. We acknowledge all the elders and community stewards whose shoulders we stand on as we build, share, and learn together for our collective liberation and sovereignty. And so that goes for all Indigenous people, all racialized, and all of our allies that really are here to stand on the shoulders of our ancestors with us. So we thank you for that moment. And we would love to begin this session by allowing our panelists today. So today we have a few panelists that would like to share their financial challenges and solutions, as well as answer a few questions. So we're gonna go ahead and introduce our very first panelist so that she is able to share her financial challenges and solutions as a local food and farm entrepreneur. So our first panelist today is Isabel Roday from Vintage Soil Farm. She's the owner and operator of Vintage Soil Farm. Isabel spent 6 years working on various organic farms in Ontario, BC, and Quebec before starting Vintage Soil Farm this past year. She is currently located on the land in Ottawa Valley and uses draft power in the field and adheres to the organic certification standard for growth. So let's take this opportunity to welcome Isabel.
Hi, everyone. Should I just go on, Jillisa?
Yes,
Great.
please.
So firstly, as I said in the chat, I just want to acknowledge that I am on the traditional unceded territory of the Algonquin and Anishinaabe people. I'm eternally grateful to have the opportunity to be present in this land and to farm in this territory. So as Vintage Soil Farm, we just wrapped up our first growing season, which is really exciting. As Jillisa mentioned, I'm a small scale farm that uses organic practices. The field that I'm renting was previously cropped to corn and soy before I got there. So I rent about 6 acres, 1.5 acres of that was used for mixed vegetables, while the rest was a mixture of cover crop, equipment storage, and then I had a nice field of weeds and rocks. This year, I distributed my veggies through 2 farmers markets, a farm stand, and a 27-member CSA program that was 15 weeks long. Just a little bit of background, as Jillisa mentioned, I had been farming for 6 years prior to starting my own business. And I really did that intentionally. I really took my time starting my own business for a couple reasons. First off, I wanted to learn as much as I could, and I needed to get paid while I was doing that. I went to university before I started farming, so I have university debt that I wanted to get a hold of before I started my own business. A large barrier for me in actually taking the plunge and starting my own farm was not having any working capital. When I started my farm, I didn't have anything that a bank would deem as a real asset. I don't own a house. I don't own my own land. I didn't have any equipment that had a serial number on it or equipment that could be used as a collateral to a loan. So I was kind of not in a good situation. After I got my business plan sorted and I secured my land rental, I decided to pursue a loan through Fair Finance Fund to get me the working capital that I needed to start my own business. First off, let me say, I explored loans with a few different lenders. And not only do lenders not really look favorably on startups, but they also don't understand the agricultural industry. So I reached out to Farm Credit Canada, who is, you know, the big agricultural lender in Canada, and they need 5 years of business history for you to get a loan through them. And that was not the case for me starting my own business. Another option I explored was an organization called Futurepreneurs that got suggested to me through our small business center. And they work with entrepreneurs who are starting their own businesses. And they just had no concept about the agricultural industry at all. So it was a really tough uphill climb with them to get them to understand my numbers and where I was coming from. So in the end, the best fit for me and my business was to go through Fair Finance Fund. It's important to note that this solution might not be right for everyone. Loans can be really daunting and monthly payments can be overwhelming. I guess when you're starting a business, it's really important to figure out what your risk tolerance is. For me, I knew I wanted to invest in my business in the onset. And it is 100% possible to start a farm at a smaller scale than I did and sell less food than I did. I knew I wanted to be at a certain scale and that I wanted to create a certain presence and have a certain diversity in order to offer the types of distribution that I wanted to. And I also knew that I wanted to have a certain quality standard. And for me, that meant investing in infrastructure that allowed me to do so. In the end, I was confident with my business plan and my sales goals, and I felt like I could take on the responsibility of a monthly payment for a loan. And I think a lot of that confidence came from working in the industry for a number of years prior to starting my own business. That's it.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for sharing. There's definitely a lot for us to relate to and like straight off the bat. So we really thank you for your insight today. We will hear back from you again soon, Isabelle, as we turn over to Gerry. Would you like to give a little intro for Gerry, Sally?
It would be my pleasure. So Gerry is a chef, entrepreneur, educator, business consultant, mentor, and a public speaker working in food security. He's a 60s scoop child from Ontario, where he is a member of the Bilkis First Nation, Anishinaabe. Gerry has risen from addiction to hold degrees in business planning, culinary arts, and education. He's a graduate of the renowned Stratford Chef School, and he's worked alongside many world famous chefs. He's led 5-star country house hotels, and he's appeared on television and magazines. As a former troubled youth, in quotation marks, Gerry has spent many years working with and mentoring young people across Canada. And today he is owner-operator of an awesome restaurant in Haley, Ontario, where every day he represents his heritage and his culture to the best of his ability. And we are thrilled to have him join us here today from his restaurant.
Bonjour, everybody. My name is Gerry Brandon. My spirit name is Nagigwakamikidan, which means frost on the ground. I have been in food service for 35 years now. I left corporate planning and took up my hobby as a trade, and I was involved with I guess, the organic and the farm to table movement very early on in the early 90s, being a member of Knives and Forks out of Toronto, working with people like Michael Statlander and Jamie Kennedy and there a few others. And in 93, I was at a place called Ben Miller Inn near Goderich, which was a 3-star, 2-diamond hotel, and doing what was called then continental cuisine, which is your pretty classic, order your meat, choose your mashed potato, baked potato, fries, vegetable of the day, soup of the day sort of thing. And we dropped that, and I, within 3 years, was able to bring that property to a 30-kilometer radius for all of its food. We bought 6 shares of an organic farm. I had foragers working for me. We had people that would just show up at our door. There was a middle-aged woman called the Fiddlehead Lady. We don't even know her name. She just showed up with bags of fiddleheads when in the season. It was a wonderful experience. We were often working 10 or 12 entrees with up to 50 different vegetables through the summer season. It was really a truly amazing thing. And that was sort of my start into I guess, food security, and the work that it took there, being in farmland. And I'm in farmland now, but it's a different world now. I think there I would spend, literally driving up and down roads, driving into every single farm, dodging guard dogs and trying to pin down a farmer to what they could do for a restaurant, and trying to get them to understand what a restaurant could do for them, which was often difficult because, different educational levels, different mindsets, different experiences. Culturally, it was often a bit of a hurdle, and I still struggle with that a little bit today. It's a lot of small organic farms locally here still don't quite get what a restaurant can do in terms of raising their profile, presenting their food. It's all in what they want to see out of it. You go to its scalability as a big part of it. When I first came here, I had a local organic farmer approach me and say they were trying to get into growing a very specific type of chicken, and I said I'd be very interested in, and they said, well, how much would you want? And I said 30, and they said, well, that's great. And I said, and then next week I want another 30. And then they kind of blinked and said, well, we only have 30. And I said, well, then the week after that, I would want another 30. And then the week after that, I want another 30. And the sort of shocked look on their face is trying to say, how do they do that? They didn't understand how to grow their operation to that size, to just supply one single restaurant, to show what's possible. I mean, it's we exist in a different world, I think, than when I started. It's we're in my mind, we're sort of at war with massive large scale farming and food distribution sources like Cisco becoming the Walmart of food and controlling the world of food, my world certainly. And it becomes very, very difficult. And it's difficult in the north, where we are a lot of times due to distances, and just finding that person that's willing to work with you and can see the possibilities is often time consuming, and just even travel can be a bit of a setback. But the reality is restaurants, and now that I own Buster's Mini Mart, it's a hybrid style coffee shop and specialty food place, is a great outlet particularly for local. But I still struggle to get local growers to understand what's possible here, and to try to create a space that's really promoting the area. But that's the work I've taken on, and we'll continue doing that. The finance side for us, we're for profit. So that has its limitations, and the reason I chose to be for profit, I mean, we put my wife and I put all of our money into the operation that we have here, and the reason we chose to be for profit is because I've spent enough time in operations that are nonprofit, listening to disparate interests of boards of directors kind of hold up the process, and I guess as an entrepreneur, I have a tendency to have a vision and put blinders on and move forward, and that way I achieve goals quicker, and usually at a lower cost, but there we are. So, you know, in what I do every day, I think there's still tremendous room in our area for food that's grown here to be used here. And just prior to COVID hitting this operation, we were looking at growing into a distillery and building our own distillery. So like, to have an indigenous owned distillery using foraged ingredients for flavorings would have been an amazing thing. And I guess I still have that vision, you know, where the money will come from now that COVID has been pretty devastating to our restaurants, remains to be seen. We still have that idea though, that because, you know, if you see somebody that's growing, and they're growing organic grain here and shipping it south, shipping it all the way south to be turned into cereal products that are then boxed and shipped back, makes so little sense to me when I could be using it to create a product that's here and create employment here and add to our community, rather than see it pay higher dollars for transportation. So there's a number of issues around that. But like I say, 35 years, I've seen a lot of food come past me. And I think today, my biggest fight is getting your average person to understand the value of real food, and to understand, you know, I think that my parents, you know, my adoptive parents who were both children of the Depression, understood better the value of food than your average person today. And I think that's purposefully put upon us by larger corporations dealing in food and with the large grocery stores. And I think that's a bit of a war that we're still fighting, and we'll go on to fight. But it leaves little or no margin for restaurants. You can't charge what you need to be charging to make any money. And I knew that going into restaurants. Restaurants don't make the kind of money they did when I started in the 80s. But you know, I do this for the sake of trying to bring real food and educational opportunities to the area and to try to change my community. And what we've done has been profound here in a town that was basically devastated by big box stores. And if anybody noticed that the past weekend, this restaurant was mentioned in Globe and Mail in the travel section. We got a note about talking about how we've changed the community and how we've had such a profound influence in an area that was really devastated by the Walmart effect. But you know, showing what you can do with food, we opened a tiny little city-style restaurant in a small town in the middle of Northern Ontario. That, you know, certainly pre-COVID and coming back now, it was packed every single night, drawing people from as far as 2 hours away drive. You know, we have people driving from Rouyn-Noranda 2 hours each direction just to dine here. That's the kind of educational opportunity that we have, both for good food, presenting good food, promoting good food, promoting real food, and promoting Indigenous culture. And in doing so, you know, the town has risen up around us. You know, new stores opening, brewery across the road from us. We opened Buster's around the corner, healing centers, an art gallery. All of this has happened in the 3 years since we arrived. So, you know, food can have a pretty profound effect on community as well. So I guess, you know, I'll field questions, but you know, like I say, 35 years of doing this, you know, I could talk about any number of subjects related to food and talk about it for days. So I'll bore the hell out of you.
Thank you so much, Gerry. Definitely not boring. There's many points that you brought forward, especially like the thought around getting the average person to understand the value of real food. And, you know, oftentimes we don't get the opportunity to think about that, but we appreciate you for bringing that forward. Thank you. All right, next, we'll be asking a few questions to both Isabel and Gerry. And so the first question that we would like to ask is, what are some ways that you've used partnerships to elevate your business and community? Let's hear from Isabel. What are some ways you've used partnerships to elevate your business and community?
So I think the first really meaningful partnership that I developed when I set on a path to start my own farm was with my local small business center. If you are looking to start up your own business, I highly, highly, highly suggest you doing a little research about who is in your area, who's working with small businesses, because the tools that I got from them were amazing. I got help with my business plan. They reviewed it a few times before I felt confident submitting it to lenders. They ran sessions in the spring where there was you could book in with other professionals in the community. You could choose two sessions with an accountant or lawyer or marketing, whatever you wanted help with, and then that was paid for through the Small Business Center. So I really suggest any young entrepreneurs looking into who's around in their space doing that. And then another partnership that was really meaningful to me in the spring was I got connected to a local organization that helps refugees and newcomers settle in Kemptville, in the town that I'm in. And through them, I was able to donate a CSA share to a local family. So I'm really excited about that community development, and I can't wait to see that grow with each year that the business is in existence. Yeah, those are two really good ones for me.
Thanks, Isabel. Gerry?
Partnerships for us was again back to the fact that I'm a very annoying person, like who puts blinders on, like I say, and it just moves forward towards a goal. We're almost a secondary thing. We came here from Vancouver with a reasonable amount of money to begin with, but we did source further loans and work with the local community. We have South Timiskaming Community Futures Development, and we worked with Anishinaabe ASCII Development Fund out of Timmins for some loans towards mostly operational costs. Once we got up and running, I had underestimated the cost of opening in Northern Ontario and found that it was even higher than cities like Vancouver or Toronto. Cost of labor, cost of materials, again, mostly due to distances and such things. But generally, when you're a small business and you're in food service, you're going to be completely ignored by banks altogether. And if you mention restaurants, you'll get a good laugh out of them. That's for sure. But they lack vision, and they're here we are in the middle of COVID, and who's posting record profits? Banks and insurance companies and grocery stores. But we're here on the front lines as far as I see it. We're here actually trying to create substantive change, and it's not going to happen via corporations, and it's great to have basically people that are existent within the community who are looking to see real change, even if they can't quite envision what that change might represent or might look like. They're there, and they know that things have happened to detrimental to their community, and they're looking to help. So we have a great clientele that and little did I know many of our clientele that come in here and dine regularly sit on the board of directors with some of the small lenders. So that's been a great thing for us. So in terms of finding financing or startup capital, that was definitely a big help. And it's definitely face to face and conversational, that you're able to have somebody really see your vision and understand what you're attempting to do and what kind of effect it could have in the long run on the local community.
Thank you, Gerry. Before we jump over to the next question, something that came into my mind that I think might really help folks, Isabel, is at the beginning, you're sharing some of the barriers that you've experienced as a startup, looking for funding and expected to have like 5 years of financials. Was there any sort of partnerships that supported you in that path when you weren't able to have 5 years of financials, for example?
Not really. The option that I got from a lot of lenders was then to take out a personal loan and give them 5 years of my like personal financial history. So it wasn't until I fully finished year one that now, like if I wanted to work with FCC, they might consider a loan with the business and then myself backing it. So it's pretty hard as a startup to with like a business that is at zero to get people to like believe in you, especially when you're a farm.
Thanks, Isabel.
So I think I'm asking the next question. Is that correct? I would frame it, having heard the really interesting stories and your experiences, I'm going to frame it a little differently. And I'm thinking particularly of when I worked with renewable energy co-ops for a couple of years, and what we found was a big issue. No matter how much experience the people in the co-op had, we actually started doing workshops basically on how to talk to lenders. So I'd be interested in hearing from you all kind of in this journey that you've gone through, the things that you've learned about what lenders expect, but also what you'd like to see in lenders, because Fair Finance Fund's trying to be different. So we need your input. So maybe Gerry first this time, and then Isabel.
Sure. I think maybe I've done this for so long, and I've been involved as a consultant in a number of other food security related projects that you and with a business background already, I can speak the same language. But I mean, even going into it, I know who's going to help and who's not going to help to a larger extent. I mean, I've found a number of individual issues around this locally. There's a lot of small lenders, but the bulk of the funding ends up coming from FedNor up here, or in the south it was FedDev, and there, you always have to be aware of where if you're looking for funding, that you're not stacking inappropriately. But so there's just having that knowledge and doing the research of what's available to you can be really time consuming, especially if you're not just an owner operator. You're sitting there as an executive in your position, but you're actually physically involved in day-to-day operation. It becomes very time consuming to do this kind of research, prepare either loan applications or business plans. And I mean, for me, that's not that difficult. I've done them for other people as a consultant, but just to even be involved in grant applications, loan applications, searching down these projects or products that are out there for us can really be a strain. And I mean, after a while, you learn the type of operation that may or may not help you, and a lot of that has to do with their association to the community that you're in. So if you have, the more local they are, the more likely, the more understanding they are of the situation in your community, the more experience they have. If they've been in the community, lived in the community, or traveled through the community, and they have that kind of reference, you're going to have a lot more luck. I've spoken to BDC probably 10 times over the last 20 years and have never gotten anything out of them. It's hard. It's hard. They will lend millions to larger operators, but they don't even want to talk about food service or small grocery corner store type thing operations at all. And they're looking, their criteria is really stringent. And here we are, like I've been operating in COVID longer than without COVID. So we're in a situation where, I go to a standard lender looking to either consolidate some existing loans, look for operating capital or expansion capital, and they're not going to talk to me because they want a year a full year of finances audited. And realistically, like I haven't had a full year of operation without COVID. So how are we gonna show that? And then in terms of auditing, who has the funding for that? If I call my accountant, it costs me $1,400. So and we won't be doing that anytime soon. So it's often we're out there looking for alternative finance methods, short of loan sharking. But that's the reality. Like I say, I got into this and I got involved. Here's a good story. I got involved in a project in Southern Ontario that was basically a grant proposal that went straight to FedDev, where we were going to build a processing vehicle, like a trailer or a large truck. It would be a canning processing plant. And what we were trying to do was to go out to small farmers across southwestern Ontario, find what they do best. I'll use corn for an example. Somebody grows the greatest sweet corn, organic sweet corn in the world, and it's beautiful. And we help them develop a recipe to create a value-added product. So they might come up with a roasted jalapeno corn relish or something like that, and then we would help them develop the labeling, the packaging, and help them get it to market. And we were looking for 1.25 million for that, and it's a large grant. And they actually, got I think 875,000, and I'm not going to mention the organization because nothing went anywhere. None of that money just disappeared. Nothing seemed to happen with it. And I sat in meeting after meeting with boards of directors. Well, and time went by, and the money slowly started to slip away, and I found it extremely disturbing. And that's one of the reasons why when I approached Lataktan Hospitality as a business plan was to go as fast as I could to get up on my feet and get operating and get income. And once we hit a point where we can either spin it into a nonprofit or turn it to a corporation and then hand off all the ownership and shares to the employees. That was my original plan and still is. It's just COVID has gotten in the way. But just to show you the struggles that you can face in these things, and you can see some people can get into really large amounts of money and it doesn't seem they're not able to create anything substantive. Yeah. So I kind of went at it as an entrepreneur this time.
Yeah, thank you. That's great insights, Isabel. Then we'll go on to the next panel, I guess.
So I guess unlike Gerry, I don't have like a ton of experience with business plans or talking to lenders or being at board meetings. Like I did an environmental degree in school, and then I farmed for 6 years. So I can grow some good food, but the starting a business was incredibly overwhelming when it came to talking about financing it, because I don't have multi-generational wealth. I didn't have like a ton of startup money. So I knew that I would have to get into the space with lenders. I think one thing that really helped me navigate that was having a lot of confidence in the business plan that I ended up putting forward and the financial projections that I did for myself. So I spent a lot of time, maybe too much time, obsessing over spreadsheets and making like really conservative financial goals, and I didn't know how to talk to lenders, and I still don't know if I really do. But I guess hopefully in 35 years I'll have more wisdom like Gerry does and be able to go into those spaces with more confidence and come out of it successful on the other side.
Well, we felt like you showed lots of confidence and panache, so I think you figured it out. I'll pass it back to you, Jillisa, for the next.
Sure. So I really appreciate that as well, Isabel, that you said that one way that you're able to navigate not having 35 years of experience was you spending the time, investing a lot of time so that you can have confidence in your business plan and financial projections. So before I just ask the last question, I would love to just remind our members, those of us that are watching, that if you have a question that you would like to ask Isabel or Gerry, please feel free to put that question in the chat box. For the last question for you both is, what are some resources that you have found helpful in navigating financial and social barriers? Are there any specific resources that you think could help our audience in navigating financial and social barriers in the food and farming ecosystem? So either of you can go ahead and go first.
I guess I can start. I honestly, I thought about this question for a while. I'm not sure if I have a good answer. I think for myself, what I found really helpful in this first year of my business was my network of farming, my farming community. So whether that was people I had farmed with previously or people who are in the area that I'm in, I reached out to a lot of people who I didn't know, who were just in the same space as me or the same region as me, and really relied on their knowledge and expertise. As a farmer, we get, one shot per year to get things right. And it's really hard to rely on your own knowledge and your own experience. And there's so much to learn from other people and from other people's experiences that I really just, I can't recommend enough everyone who's looking to start their own business to reach out to people who are in the space, because you might as well learn from mistakes that they've made and then you can make different ones.
Can we field the question again? I got
Sure.
an alert come through on my phone and kind of drowned everything out.
No worries. So the question is, what resources have you found helpful while navigating financial and social barriers in the food and farming ecosystem? If there are any specific resources that you feel the community can also tap into?
It's a little different in my end of it, and in this particular experience, because we're at quite a high-end, very well-managed concept restaurant. There was nothing like us in the area whatsoever. So I had nothing to look at other than, I did my research. I knew the cross section of the populace here. I knew the community from growing up here. I had a good idea of the sort of the relationship between the three distinct cultures that are here, which is, Anglophone, Francophone, and Indigenous. So that was really what I was focused on, was people and community more than anything, and to offer them something that I felt that they were looking for. So, our additional research was, and because we're sort of remote, I don't really consider us that remote, but we're sort of remote, and we're bisected by a lake that with Quebec on one side and Haileybury, Newliscourt, Tri-Towns on the other side. I needed to appeal to a broader audience, and the audience we were looking at was, you find an interesting thing in more rural communities. You find a group of people that have either grown up here, gone away to college, experienced culture on the very urban level, and experienced some of the better things in life. They're looking for something that's reminiscent of the city and helps remind them of that culture and that lifestyle. And then at the same time, you have people from the city who've moved here for work, and they're looking for that, to bring some of that city experience with me. I mean, and you really see this. We're seeing this now because, I had a woman stopped me on the street just the other day telling me I'm not allowed to ever leave this town because she moved here just because of this restaurant. And she said, I can leave Toronto and I can leave everything in it, but I can't leave one good restaurant. I have to have that wherever I go. And that's a testament to achieving something on a cultural level. that's been sort of one of the bigger focuses for us was, you know, to get into this space and it's fairly tight little city style restaurant where people are almost shoulder to shoulder and tables are only 18 inches apart, to see people who can barely speak English, French speaking people who can barely speak English, speaking to their English table side people across from them, like, you know, to see three different cultures in one space. You know, this restaurant was never meant to be a huge moneymaker. It was meant to be a cultural social experiment, and you know, that's been the sort of direction that we took from the beginning. And like I say, it takes vision. You know, and I think for any young entrepreneur that's looking to get into any sort of business, the biggest thing you can have is having, you know, that firm belief in your vision that you're doing something that's going to give you happiness and give you joy at the end of the day. And that's what I set out to do. And it was interesting, Isabel talking about generational wealth. That's an interesting point, and it's one that I've brought up recently. And I did some interviews for CBC Radio and for the Globe, and I was talking about how the concept of generational wealth is pretty much Eurocentric to me. Generational wealth is, you know, I see it as a situation where you work hard all your life, you save as much as you possibly can save, and then at the end of your life, you're going to pass it on to your children, and hopefully they will increase that wealth, you know, and so on down the generations. Where in my culture, my belief system, it's not like that at all. To me, I've you know, I'm 60 years old now. I've worked hard, lived long, was fortunate in some ways. I struggled as an Indigenous person does in this country still to this day to create something like La Tuc Tun. And I still tell all the people that work here, I said that, you know, the difficulty with being an Indigenous entrepreneur, Indigenous restaurateur, Indigenous in anything, is the fact that in order to be accepted as equal, you have to be better than. And unfortunately, that continues to this day. So, you know, this restaurant is better than anything for hundreds of miles in any direction. And we're getting the national attention that proves that. But it gives me an opportunity. It's an educational opportunity. And our intention from the beginning is to not create generational wealth. It's to take whatever wealth I've gained through my lifetime and to use it to better the community around me and to spread that wealth into the community via our staff, who are, you know, having their first child, buying their first house, helping out in their community, building our community around me. And then, you know, at the end of the day, my wife and I hope to really retire, not just use this project as something to do for us for now, but to retire out of it and have the people hand over ownership to the staff and hopefully they take care of us as in our later years. That's the way we approach the handling of wealth.
Wow, so many great points and insight there. Thank you both, Isabel and Gerry. Later in the session, we'll have an opportunity to do a bit of networking. So if they're able to stick around, hopefully you'll be in a breakout room. We're able to discuss a little bit more with them. But right now, we would like to introduce our next set of panelists. And so we're going to start with our first of this set, Celeste Lopriato. She's the owner of The Conscious Kitchen, a food business founded in 2019, creating freshly made meals delivered to customers' doors. They specialize in plant-based and zero waste meals made from organic and local ingredients. Celeste has a deep passion for farming, preserving and making ethical and environmentally farmed food mainstream. She identifies as queer and mixed race woman and lives in Central Grey County with her partner Simone and their two dogs, Chester and Zara. Welcome, Celeste. Please take the floor.
Hello, and I'm just going to share a presentation. Just give me a minute here. Oops. Okay. So yeah, as Jillisa said, I'm Celeste. I'm the owner of The Conscious Kitchen. And I guess just to brief her on our business. So we're a prepared meal delivery business. And our main things that we focus on are organic, plant-based, and local. And so we have a partnership with a farm that's just a few towns over from us called Cedar Down Farm. They're a 6-acre vegetable farm, and we buy almost all of our produce from them from May to March, so almost year round. And at this point, we're purchasing around $3,000 a month from them. So it's a pretty big partnership, and we're a pretty big part of their business. So we really do rely on each other in order to sustain ourselves and to kind of push forward with our goals, because they are really interested in selling wholesale as it's a lot less work and they're getting older, and we're obviously really interested in buying local. We also have a reusable container program. So we're a completely zero waste company to the consumer end, which means all of the meals we produce are sent to our customers in reusable containers that we get back the following week, sanitize, and use again. And our menu changes every single week. So we offer 5 different meal choices every single week that are in line with the seasons. And we also are completely online. So every dollar of our sales comes through Shopify. And so what our customers are getting are 3 or 5 meals per week. And we have different portion sizes. So we have a single portion, a couple portion, and a family portion. And our main customers are young families, so couples with babies or toddlers. And people can also add extra meals and a few grocery items that we make in-house to their order. And we also offer completely free delivery. So we founded in Guelph, and we operated out of Guelph for 1.5 years through a commercial kitchen downtown. And we recently purchased a farm in Markdale, Ontario. So we're kind of in the center of Grey County. And we actually have a commercial kitchen that we put in on our property in the basement of our home. And we deliver to 3 major regions, including Guelph and the surrounding towns there, KW region, Cambridge, and then also the Collingwood area. So Thornbury, Collingwood, Blue Mountains, and some other small towns around there. And right now we have about 200 customers in rotation. So that means every week we're averaging about 100 orders, and about 70 to 75% of those orders are customers who order every single week. So our company really is based on returning customers. And we know our customers really well. Like, we know each other by name. We obviously go to their home every week. We know their kids' names, their pets' names. Like, it's a very customer heavy business. So we, yeah, that's really an important part of our business. And that's the only way we're really able to operate using the reusable container system. And our average order size is about $75. So just before kind of getting into our financing challenges, I think it's important to share kind of like our sales, just to let people know, I guess, what kind of financing we have looked for in the past, and what we're looking for now, and kind of to give a bit of a briefer on like the challenges. And I also really believe in an open book model. So all of our employees know exactly everything we're buying and selling. Same with our customers. Really, anyone can ask and we're happy to share. So in our first year of business, our revenue was $80,000. Second year, it was just over doubled. And then our third year, we're about 1/3 of the way into our third year, and we're projected for 350. So just the history of the financing that we have gotten in the past. I started this business a year after I graduated university, and I had a full-time job in that year after I graduated, and I was able to save $10,000 of just personal income. I also have student debt like Isabel, but I haven't really touched that. I just do like the minimal payments for now. And so yeah, I invested $10,000 to get our very simple setup going. We found a basically empty commercial space that we had to outfit with a kitchen, but I actually was able to partner with another small business and we shared that kitchen for the first year. So together we invested $20,000 just into some simple plumbing, fridges, shelving, counters, and we actually just used induction cooktops for the whole year, which was a huge struggle. I don't recommend it, but we couldn't afford proper venting for commercial kitchens. And we also just couldn't find a commercial kitchen in Guelph that was for rent. Guelph is a really hard spot to find any commercial kitchens or restaurants. So that was a huge barrier. And we didn't get any loans or grants in the first 1.5 years of business. I'll go into it a bit later, but basically it was impossible to get any kind of loan because almost everyone wanted a 2-year history, and grants also the same. So people wanted proof of sales and things like that that I just obviously didn't have. And then in September of 2020, we were able to get a $5,000 grant from the Smart Cities initiative out of Guelph. So they gave grants out to circular businesses. And through that program, I also got a $10,000 loan that I'm currently paying back. And then in March, I actually got a loan from Shopify. So Shopify, the online sales platform, if you have been using it for a certain amount of time and you show certain sales through it, you actually qualify for their in-house loan program. So it's all based on your own sales through your store. And I was able to qualify for $12,000 in March of 2021. And I repaid that in the following 4 months. So I just used that to purchase some like emergency equipment that we needed in our kitchen. But I had to pay it back really quickly, and they actually automatically take it from your sales. So it's quite a risky loan if that's something people are interested in, but for us, it worked out really well. And now that we've paid it off, they actually sent us a second offer of a loan for, I think, $35,000. So I guess we proved to them that we could pay it back. And so they offered us more. And I think the interest on that is 6%. That was a really useful thing that we found. And then I also got a $2,500 grant from Pitch Better. And we recently, the most recent financing we received was a $20,000 grant in October. And that's also through the Smart Cities initiative out of Guelph. But that one was a very difficult grant to get. So we had to prove we had $200,000 in revenue, and we actually had to also be incorporated. So we decided to incorporate for other reasons, but it also allowed us to apply for that loan. So the main challenges I faced with financing was I actually quit my job to start this business. So I didn't have any income to show when I was applying for credit cards and loans from any banks. So that basically disqualified me from any kind of loan, and really credit cards as well. So my business credit card, my partner had to sign on for, even though at the time she wasn't a partner in the business. That was my only income I was able to show. And again, as I said, most loans, so from small business centers, BDC, all those kind of loan programs, you had to require, you were in 2 years into business, and you had to show them your actual like tax files, which obviously I didn't have any of that. So it immediately disqualified me. And also something we just kind of decided and realized was that acting as a sole proprietorship was giving us a lot of issues with credit. So again, I was the owner of the Conscious Kitchen as a sole proprietor for 2 years. So obviously with sole proprietorships, like any profit is considered your income. And in the first 2 years, I didn't have that much profit to show on paper as I made a lot of investments. So really I was under the poverty line in terms of my income, which created a lot of issues for me to get personal financing as well as business financing, because I wasn't actually showing how much money the business was generating. So we made the decision to incorporate this past fall, and now I'm on proper payroll for myself. So I'm actually completely separating my finances from the business, which I think is going to help us in the future for financing. And then just some major investments that we mainly had to fund through the business because we couldn't get financing were, again, the first year. So by the end of that first year, I had invested $30,000 into the kitchen. And then I also purchased a refrigerated vehicle. And then when we moved to our home here, I invested $35,000 into a second kitchen that we operate out of now. And then most recently, we've purchased a new delivery vehicle, as our old one is not really handling the winters up north very well. So we decided to purchase a new vehicle that was a Ford Transit, and it's better and larger. So we're financing that for $90,000. And the next huge kind of investment we're looking for financing on is a expansion in our basement for the commercial kitchen. And that's gonna be a $100,000 renovation. So that's kind of what we're looking at to do now. And I haven't quite looked too much into it, but I'm assuming it's not gonna be that easy to get that kind of loan. So this is, again, why we incorporated to help kind of show more, I don't know, I guess, history, and to just better prepare ourselves for applying for loans. And that's everything for me. Just gonna stop sharing.
Thank you so much for that, Celeste. There is a lot that you're able to share that has given, I'm sure, many of our viewers a lot of insight around the type of investments and partnerships that you've made, and even sacrifices that you've made for your business. So thank you so much for sharing. Sally?
We have Amy and Kevin here from the McQuestion Urban Farm joining us. Kevin has been farming organically for 20 years, and he's the lead farmer at the McQuestion. He has ridden his bicycle across Canada, raising awareness about food and the environment. That's, for those of you who don't remember, is 15,000 kilometers and 4,000 kilometers across Australia before that. And also 22,000 visiting farms from Portugal to Vietnam. He was also the youngest ever recipient of the Hamilton Environmentalist of the Year. And I'm actually, don't have Amy's. Do you have it, Jillisa?
I do see Amy's here.
So why don't you go ahead with Amy?
Sure. So Amy has been with McQuestion Urban Farm for over 5 years. In this time, she has rekindled and rallied her passions for growing food, food justice, cooking, and working with her community to improve McQuestion neighborhood. With a background in journalism and graphic design, Amy has combined these skills with farming to help the project grow online and in fields. She is at the farm. When she's at the farm, you can hear her talking about food always, farming, taking pictures for the farm's social media, petting dogs, a weekly volunteer sessions, and the seasonal fresh produce market. At home, you will find Amy growing vegetables, working on her never-ending perennial pollinator garden, canning, cooking, and playing roller derby and crafting. So welcome to the space, Kevin and Amy.
Thank you.
Hello.
We're just going to share Amy's screen here if we can. So yeah, I've helped transition several farms over the years, 4 to be exact, from conventional to organic. And when I came down here to McQuestion Urban Farm, we're in the middle of the city. It's quite a large project in that we are in a very low income neighborhood. There's lots of social housing around us. And we're farming on about 2 acres of property. It was an old World War I airstrip. And I guess when the city did their soil samples and that, there was a lot of contamination. So they scalped about 8 to 12 inches of soil out. And if anybody knows Hamilton, if you've ever gone up the Red Hill Valley, it's called the Red Hill because the soil is, well, it's more like clay. It's very hard red that they make bricks out of. So that's kind of what we are left with. So in the 5 years that we've been down here, we now have topsoil, but it took a lot of work to get the farm up to productive. So yeah, there's where we are. And you can see on the right slide there where McQuestion is in the east end of Hamilton. We're kind of downwind from a lot of the steel mills as well. And I think about 50% of Hamilton's social housing is within 1 kilometer of the Red Hill Valley where we currently are. And that catchment there, our farm services from Glow Avenue, which is basically where the Woodward, there's a garbage incineration plant that is no longer, there's a water treatment facility there, up to Queenston, and then from the highway to Parkdale. And that's our catchment for, that is considered a food desert because there's not a lot of grocery stores around, and it takes people 1 or 2 buses to get to I would say decent farm fresh food. So yeah, we're a not-for-profit organic farm in Hamilton here. We're growing everything organic, and our bookkeeping is also done organically. I've been a certified organic farmer my entire career. So it's really useful to have that auditing system in place for everything that comes on the farm, from your compost, when you apply it, when you start your seedlings, where you get your seeds from, and then of course all the weights and stuff when you're harvesting. We have a low-cost market. We're listening to all the other presentations. It's interesting, and I struggled coming here at first as well, even coming from a not-for-profit background and a for-profit farm background, in that we are predominantly here for the social reasons. We have a very diverse community here, and because it's a food desert, we're trying to make food available kind of at like wholesale prices, or we are trying to compete kind of with, well, not compete, but get close to the no frills kind of prices, so that we can make nutritious food available to our neighborhood. So yeah, we have a low cost market and CSA, and we wholesale food to Neighbor to Neighbor, Indwell, and a few other organizations in town. We also are in a building right beside where the farm is, that is the Aboriginal Health Center, and there's a organization called Nawasa that runs a food bank out of here. So we don't have a lot of slippage in that. Anything that we don't sell, we will make sure that it gets into the food bank. Yeah, we have amazing volunteers that come out from the community. We do 4 sessions a week. And prior to COVID, we had a curriculum-based educational program where kids would come in and we would go out in the field and, well, actually they come in the classroom first, and we'd explain the soil food web to them, and they would do like how you would make lasagna gardening, or how you would make your compost. We would make a lasagna in our schoolroom with cutting boards and all that, and then they would stick it in the oven. Then they would come out into the fields and hang out, pull weeds, harvest the vegetables that they just prepared in the schoolroom that went into our certified kitchen, and that's all in the school beside the farm. And then when we would sit down in the outdoor classroom at the end of it, the food would come out and they would all get to eat the food. So it was a pretty good way to connect kids right to the farm and to the food. We also offer lots of workshops, skill building programs for families and neighbors. We have a weekly weed and feed, which is really great, where families come out, weed, and a big meal gets made and everyone comes in and shares the food. We make lots of value-added products, preserves, ferments. We're currently absolutely polluting the school with drying out habanero peppers and making hot sauce, and it's quite an aromatic, maybe mildly offensive odor when you come in.
Spicy air.
Yeah, spicy air. And we have, yeah, lots of farm tours every year through, what are they called again?
Through Farm Crawl Hamilton. We also have different organizations that are just interested in how we work. And so we host a ton of different farm tours and also working groups from businesses like Maple Leaf, McMaster University, and those types of things.
Yeah, so the 2-acre farm, it was kind of a big eyesore here. I did the initial, I guess, consulting back in 2008, and we didn't break ground till 2016. And like I said, they took all the soil out, and it was quite a barren landscape to start with. It was City of Hamilton property, and currently still is. And it was created by members of the McQuestion neighborhood community that were wanting to do something with the eyesore that was just kind of weeds and tall grass, and other nefarious things may have been happening in there too. And the City of Hamilton really got it up and running with the persistence of a woman named Pat Reed, who was just absolutely hounding relentlessly, wanting to do something with it. And with that, we had Maple Leaf Foods come down, and they donated a $500,000 4-year operating budget for us to get up and running, and then to be able to employ people as well.
That's actually through their Feed Opportunity Program, and it's open to all farmers. You can only apply once in your career, so if you're interested, they have lots of different grants, and they operate all over Canada.
And then we also had money coming in from the City of Hamilton had a community fund, which the name of the actual fund escapes me. And then there's some foundations that continually, sustainably support the farm as well. Am I missing anyone there? Yeah, and then, yeah, I guess we can go to the next slide. So yeah, barriers and challenges of an urban farm. And again, we're a lot different than the previous presenters. Our startup costs were great because we pretty much had zero infrastructure, except that we had 2 classrooms in the school. And there is a certified kitchen attached to one of the schoolrooms that we enjoy and use. The logistics and delivery, we still do not have. We just do an on-farm market here and an on-farm CSA pickup. So we don't have a delivery vehicle or anything. That kind of all falls on me, having a vehicle that I have to drive in. I also live on a farm, and I've run farm businesses as well. Our current location, the socioeconomics in our neighborhood are very low. Like we're in a space where it's kind of like where Bosnia meets Somalia meets Haiti meets Syria meets. It's a lot of folks that are often refugees that are from war-torn countries and or places where genocide, like some of the worst things. So conflict resolution skills. I've broken up lots of fights. It's a very colorful neighborhood. And with that, yeah, the finances are not here for people to pay do the full cost accounting on the farm for what we produce. We also get, I should mention, compost that is free, delivered from the City of Hamilton's waste facilities, from the curbside compost pickup. the lack of food education and food-based skills is also a big one. We're able to get around that by offering our education programs with the schools that come in. There's lots of public schools and Catholic schools in Hamilton that prior to COVID were coming in by the busloads. And they're paying us to do that as well. And it's just a really amazing way to connect kids to the land and the food and the nutrition, and also teach them, you know, they're having the claw and the cutting skills and the cooking skills. Usable public space. We're very fortunate here in that we have our classrooms so we can do indoor stuff. And then we also have an outdoor classroom. A company called Beam and Stock also put in part of the grant to make an outdoor classroom for us using all natural wood and logs and stuff like that. Another big barrier or challenge for us is the vandalism and theft. We have a lot of idle hands in kids in the neighborhood that I got an FU scratched into my car at one point, to give you an idea. But they're very beautiful kids, and we're trying to connect with them and let them know that we're here to help the community. And our markets have grown really substantially in the 5 years that we've been here, and trying to keep these kids busy and include them in the farm is part of our mandate. And I am community engagement officer, animator is part of my role too. Yeah, I think we've got all that. Yeah, our bylaws for urban farming too. I can't run the pumps early in the morning for the irrigation and get some of those things done when we really should be running them early in the morning to deal with our climate change and hot days to preserve our water. Yeah, these are solutions for navigating barriers. I went through a few of them there. Having specialized grants have been really great to cover our operating costs and our staff wages and to purchase new equipment. Our annual sales, running the low cost market, it helps, but again, we're a social enterprise in that our focus is not to make money, and we're a not-for-profit as well. So that's not our focus. But that has been really good for us, something that's bringing in income. And seedling sale is really great too. We do have 2 container ship kind of 40-foot containers that are now transformed into greenhouses. And in an urban setting, we needed something a little beefier than a double poly greenhouse. I think the first week we had a patio stone thrown on the front of the greenhouse. So again, these we're trying to work with the kids to inoculate them to protect the farm and have fun elsewhere if that's the kind of fun they're having. One great thing that we've been able to do to offset the cost of our staffing and that, because staffing is always a major cost, is we do these farm tours. And when I'm giving the farm tours, I'm always encouraging folks, like, it's one thing to donate money and help out by donating equipment or stuff like that. The best way is to actually come down and help 4 hours, 8 hours, 10 hours a month, whatever you can do. And we've been able to get some pretty great volunteers sustainably throughout the season. And then, yeah, just continuing to have great partnerships in the area with different organizations and being able to share resources. Like we just had another blender breakdown, and I know that if we use our social media to ask for another blender, somebody will have one kicking around in the appliance graveyard. We actually got an Excalibur, which is a pretty high-end dehydrator, donated to us that somebody bought at a Sally Ann or whatever. So yeah, I'm the lead organic farmer down here. Because of what I've done in my life and all the places I've ridden my bike and all the farms that I've visited, 40,000 kilometers plus under my butt, raising money on some of those rides. And I've got a pretty firm grasp of soil food web. I'm currently taking that soil food web course with Elaine Ingham as well. So having a lead farmer for us, I think has been a blessing. down here for the education. And yeah, knowing the needs of your community, what food is going to be consumed is absolutely huge. We're constantly tweaking that, but we're now pretty firm in what our needs are and what the ethnicity is in and around us for the people that we're servicing. And then yeah, strong record keeping is an asset, and that last one, being flexible and forgiving, is huge in the current neighborhood that we're growing in.
Thank you both so much, Kevin and Amy, for all of the great details that you shared. You really answered a lot of the questions that we already had. So thank you so much.
Welcome.
Next, we want to hear from the folks at Red Rock Indian Band Hanger and Butcher Shop. So I would love to introduce Tim Ruth. He is a custodian and maintenance man for Red Rock Indian Band. He is a Red Rock Indian Band member, and along with his wife, they raised 2 beautiful daughters within the community. Not only is Tim an employee of the band, he also takes on projects. I'm going to let you introduce that, just give a little bit more detail about that, Tim. And they have volunteers in this time in all community events. Tim can be seen as a very active member of his community in all capacities. We also have Joanna, who has been the employment counselor under the Social Services Department at Red Rock Indian Band for the past 4 years. Red Rock Indian Band is an Ojibwe First Nations community in northwestern Ontario. Aside from her employment counseling role, she sits on the Food Sovereignty Committee, which spearheaded a project that will bring food security to the community. This project, I just don't want to butcher the name, so I'm going to give you both the opportunity to say the name properly, but this project means at the gathering place. And so I'm looking forward to learning more about this project because it consists of a 4-prong moose hanger, butcher shop, and furniture tannery. Currently, she's working on her community economics and social development degree at Algoma University, and in hopes she can use her knowledge to assist the community in all their endeavors. We welcome you both, Tim and Joanna.
Hi.
Welcome, please take the stage.
So yeah, we got started on food security. Basically, we started out as a community garden. So we did a 30 by 40 foot garden here at the band office within the community. And a lot of community members come out. It's staff driven as well. We utilize our Ontario Works clients to come work in the garden as well, which is a good opportunity to include everybody. And then from then we were invited to some food sovereignty workshops in the city of Thunder Bay. So we attended those, and there we met different kind of funders and different groups of people that brought in our network. So yeah, we started applying for funding. Actually, we were offered funding. There were small pots of funding for Indigenous communities within our area. So we had to come up with like short-term, medium, and long-term goals. So for us to meet the community needs, the moose hanger was the short-term goal, because during fall harvest here, there wasn't enough people to hang their moose. So we had that fabricated and installed and erected, and that was good. And then our medium goal was the butcher shop, which we completed this year. The grand opening was September 30th. And our long-term goal will be the tannery, which we'll be starting that project soon as well. And for other food initiatives here, lots of departments within Red Rock Indian Band support that. Like we support the high school and the grade schools with milk vouchers. We have salmon derby, like fishing derby. We provide good food boxes within the community once a month. And so a good food box goes out to approximately 104 houses within the community. So, and we just thought that food sovereignty is super important to Indigenous people too, right? Because a lot of that, their diet back then was taken away from them through colonization and stuff. So it's really important to bring that and revitalize, you know, Indigenous, traditional Indigenous food back.
So just going off what Joanna was saying, me and Joanna were working together for the butcher shop, which just snowballed out of control at some time. And we first started, like Joanna said, with the 4-prong moose hanger. We used to gather food for our harvest and then just break out tables and then process the meat from just tables at our chalet lodge that we own. And from there, ideas were floating around that, hey, we should do this, we should do that. And then what it all escalated to was just to build a 30 by 40 building, have a walk-in fridge and freezer where we could store the meat and other products throughout for the community. And it just ended up being a full-fledged butcher shop now. So with that being said, we're also trying to bring back the youth into traditional teachings through harvesting, preparing the meat that is gathered, whether it be fish, deer, moose, bear. And from that, we are also doing some tanning that we're in the process of making. We're going to be canning some food, dehydrating food, and just all to have a sustainable food within the community of the Red Rock Indian Band. So it is a big project, bigger than whatever I thought I was getting myself into, that's for sure.
So in addition to that, because of our project, we're kind of the first community within our area to have this type of project. So a lot of our surrounding communities are contacting us wanting to come and have a tour and pick our brains about the project. So we're happy to help other communities develop and grow as well.
Awesome. Thank you both so much for sharing. We really appreciate everyone's insight so far. We're just about to get into our panel questions. This time around, we're going to ask each of our panelists to answer just one question so that we have time for us to do a bit of networking at the end. If you do have a question as an audience member, please again, feel free to drop your question in the chat box so that we can have that answered for you. But first, I would love to start the question with Celeste. And so Celeste, you were able to share the many partnerships that you've been able to create in order to elevate your business and connect a little deeper with communities. And so for anyone that's joining us today that might be questioning how you were able to create these partnerships and use these partnerships to elevate your business and community, what are some of the points that you would love to share and how folks can make this work for their own business?
Yeah, I guess definitely, I think the way I was able to form these partnerships was just to like reach out and be like really genuine and open with people. So the first partnership of joining forces with another business to share a commercial kitchen, like I literally just emailed her and asked, you know, hi, can we go out to coffee and talk about it? And I think the most important thing about trying to build partnerships with other businesses is to prioritize them and like how this partnership is going to help them instead of just focusing on yourself. So, you know, I couldn't afford the space on my own, but I'm not going to lead with that because she doesn't care. So I prioritized it and, you know, what do you need in a kitchen and like how can we work together to get the things you need and I need and actually share them in a way that works for us. So we really made sure we like fleshed out all the things, you know, like financially, what we each were interested in investing, and also like physically, how are we going to share the space? You know, what days do you need and what days do I need? And make sure that there's no confusion from the start in order to make that work. And then I think the other important partnership we have is obviously with the farm we buy vegetables from. And again, that's like that was a challenging thing to find. So I worked with many like organic farms before then, and they didn't meet the needs that I had, but I also wasn't necessarily sharing that with them, right? So some of them were just too small and couldn't offer the quantity I needed. So and if everything in cases, everything at least 40 pounds. And some of them just couldn't offer that. Also, like some of the washing and post-harvest handling just wasn't up to the standards that I needed to ensure freshness for the length of time it would have to sit in my cooler after I get it from them. So there was just some like poor communication from both ends, and it led to both of us, I think, having issues and it not working out. So when I decided to reach out to Cedar Down Farm, which was the farm I was getting a CSA from for a few years, I really laid it out, you know, this is how much money I'm willing to spend with you every week. This is the quantity I'm looking for. This is the exact crop list I'm looking for. And these are like the requirements I need. And we both were able to commit to that upfront to make sure that there was no, I guess, issues that came up later. And now we're able to make some more like long-term partnership investments together. Like I'm looking into actually purchasing a heated greenhouse for their farm so they can increase more winter production for us, because it's just impossible for us to find greens in the winter, and we really want local greens. So, you know, these are some very serious investments we're looking at doing together. So I think just being super upfront with everything has made it possible.
That's great information. Thank you, Celeste. So I am directing the next question to Amy and Kevin. And this is, you know, given the food security work, what are sort of a couple of financial practices that you found helped you prepare to talk to funders to be able to access the funding that you needed?
In the first year in 2016 when we started, myself and a fella, Alvaro Venturelli, who runs Plan B Organic Farms, together we put, I mean, I don't want to sound egotistical or whatever, but I do often get very high praise, especially when I'm with Alvaro, because we're able to bounce growing and soil science and that kind of thing. So when the city was looking at moving this forward, having those strong lead farmers, as I said, like at the end of the presentation, was pretty important. And when the funders came out, we kind of, Alvaro has a very good way of putting things succinctly and talking about food security, especially with a company like Maple Leaf Foods, and being in the neighborhood we are in. I think ArcelorMittal was also a part too, DeFasco, which are right here in the Hamilton community, and giving them the opportunity to give back in a really meaningful way. And kind of putting it on them a bit, like, what are you guys doing for inner city and then places that are in need? Like this community, like no other, this community was very isolated from having affordable, healthy access to food. So yeah, I think that was key. And for us, also having the city of Hamilton partnering with us was very big. But yeah, we offered them that opportunity and they took it, and kudos to them. Anything else, Ian?
Awesome. Thank you for that insight. And I'm sure folks would probably even wonder how you were able to partner with the city of Hamilton. Are you able to share just a little bit on that?
Yeah, Amy's got this.
In the city of Hamilton, there's tons of different programs that communities can approach. So this community, McQueston, it also has a planning team. In Hamilton, we have different quadrants, like different hubs, if you will. And through that, you're kind of recognized as your own little community space. And then you go to the city and you can apply for different grants. So initially, when they thought of this farm, they just wanted a big garden. So they took their idea to the city, they applied for like a couple $100, whatever. And the city's like, wow, great idea and great use of space. And from there, they helped connect and they found navigators through that. And we partnered, well, we have a project manager from the city of Hamilton. His name's Adam Watson, who's done amazing work for us. And with his help, because we were linked with the city, we were able to get these like giant grants, like these federal and municipal grants. So I'm not really sure if other cities and communities work like that, but usually with that, like with the cities, you can apply for grants and you can, there are ways to get those types of funding.
I guess to complement that too, the transforming of brown spaces into green spaces. Like I said, they had to take all that soil out, which also made it important to have a good lead farmer to rebuild. But yeah, that transition, especially in a city like Hamilton that is heavily industrialized.
Great, thank you so much for sharing that bit. Our last question for this session goes to Joanna and Chum. And so we would love to hear just a little bit more about your experience in finding financial support, talking to lenders and funders. Are you able to share a little bit more on that?
Yeah, through networking, we were introduced to a lot of people, funders and that, and we just started like a candid conversation. And actually, the funders are actually pretty good. Like they're willing to help fill out the application and offer any advice that they can. So, and yeah, we like to keep in contact, like we'll send updates and pictures and keep them engaged, right? And yeah, it's nice for funders to see like visual pictures and receive those updates, just so they know where the project is going. Have anything?
Well, just briefly what Joanna said, they're all funders were pretty much encouraging us to go up and above of what we were really looking forward. At the beginning of the project, they wanted to see us reach the stars right from the beginning, and very, very like fulfilling for helping us through the application process and stuff like that for each part of the project.
Yeah, so just to touch base on like how helpful funding the funders were, the 4-prong moose hanger was about $7,000. The butcher shop actually was a $300,000 project, and the tannery we're anticipating for another $300,000. So yeah, funding really helped us a lot.
Yeah, thank you. I think one overarching theme that I'm hearing from many of us today is really around, creating those relationships, staying in contact, making sure that we're sharing the process. I would love to hear from you, Celeste, what insight you have around funders. Please share.
Yeah, sorry, I just had one thing that came to mind was for the more like traditional funders like BDC and the small business centers, I had a huge issue with them just not understanding anything about my business. So like as a small like farm local food based business, they don't really deal with these kinds of businesses and don't think that they're successful. And especially with me doing only delivery and not retail before the pandemic, they all thought it was crazy and that like I would never become a real business. And they also thought that being plant-based was way too niche, when in fact most of my customers are not even plant-based at all. They just want the food. So I had talked to Sally a lot before, and people like Fair Finance like actually understand that this is a growing movement and that there is actually space for businesses like ours in the future. And actually they're like gonna be the thing that's driving the food scene. So I think the major issue with funders is they just don't understand businesses like ours, and they don't want to put the effort and care into doing it.
Great, thanks for sharing that, Celeste. And I think that just because funders don't understand yet does not mean that you need to change your story or stop sharing and creating change in the ways that you do. So thank you so much for that. And thank you. I would love to hear more about Carrot Cash, which is the perfect segue into our networking section.
Another point on funding is what we found is that a lot of the funders do appreciate like a plan that you have, but basically what some of the burdens that go with the funding was pretty much meeting the criteria of the funding dollars that were available. And then we ran into a couple of walls like that too, Joanna, that the criteria of our project wasn't meeting the funders' requests. So didn't get denied, but we just got less funds basically. But through being very diligent through each application, we went through a lot of applications and reread it, rewrote it, and tried to really pinpoint the points that were asking for the monies that were out there. Was sometimes a headache, a nightmare, late calls, and stuff like that. So as long as you pursue it, the funding will come to your door. So.
Absolutely, I agree with that 100%. Thank you so much, Chum. And thanks to everyone that's been also adding your contact into the chat box. So if you have not yet, please feel free to add your contact information into the chat box. Do you have any closing remarks, Sally?
No, I know we're at the end. I just thank you all. Thank you to the speakers for giving us this time and sharing your expertise. I really appreciate it. I know that people sign up and wait until the recording comes out, so you know that your words are going to be spread far and wide. So thank you so much.
Yes, and I'd like to echo what Sally has said. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining us, for sharing all of your amazing insight with us. We're definitely leaving with a lot of great information and resources and ways forward. So we want to appreciate you for your time. For anyone watching, thank you for taking the time out to watch. I think I'm going to make my way over to McKeston so that I can join this workshop that they're preparing for, because I want to make some lasagna and all that cool stuff too. But thank you, everyone. And we look forward to seeing you all again soon. Take care.
Thank you. Bye, everybody.